Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Nick Gray from Phandroid, and this here is the all-new Pixel 4a. Now, I do need to confess something right from the very beginning. I honestly wasn't looking forward to reviewing this device just because it had been delayed for so long. I really liked last year's Pixel 3a, but the Pixel 4 was a huge disappointment for Google, so much so that they discontinued the phone less than a year after its launch. So my question was, how good could the Pixel 4a actually be? Well, after using this for roughly 2 weeks now, I have to say, it's really good. Now, I'm not here to tell you that the Pixel 4a is going to be competing with devices like the Galaxy Note Ultra or the OnePlus 8 Pros of the world. It's definitely not. Its mid-range spec sheet and its full HD Plus display with only a 60Hz refresh rate is honestly going to make most smartphone fanboys cringe just a little bit. But that's not going to stop me from making this $350 smartphone one of my top recommendations for 2020. If the price of the Pixel 4a didn't already give it away, this here is a solid mid-range device. That being said, its design is substantially different than other devices within the category. Rather than using glass on the back or even just glossy plastic that masquerades as glass, the Pixel 4a has a simple unibody design from top to bottom. So much so that Google's design team even incorporated the rear-mounted fingerprint sensor into the unibody itself to cut down on components and manufacturing costs. As for the color, if you're thinking that this just black finish isn't quite your style, well, you're out of luck, since this is the only color option being offered. So you're gonna have to pick up a case or a skin to cover it up and make the phone just look a little bit different. Overall, the design of this phone in my book gets a solid D, but there are a couple positives here. The polycarbonate finish has a nice tactile feel to it, and it makes it a lot lighter than most other devices that are on the market these days. And then there's these clicky buttons. And honestly, it's been a long time since I've used some buttons that sounded this good. One area that Google didn't skimp on is the audio. I was surprised to find out that the 4a has stereo speakers, one on the bottom and one on the front, in addition to the 3.5mm headphone jack that it has up top. Now, most mid-range devices, including the OnePlus Nord, typically only have a single speaker, so it's nice to see Google's phone having two. Google's motion sense gestures, the squeeze functionality, and face unlock features found on the Pixel 4 that launched last year have been dropped in order to save cost. But honestly, motion sense really never worked that well for me, simply waving my hand over the display in order to control it. But the squeeze functionality to pull up the Google Assistant was always extremely convenient. And then Google could have gone with an unsecure face unlock system like OnePlus and other manufacturers have done, but the rear-mounted fingerprint sensor does the job just perfectly, and it's honestly a little bit faster than what you get on most in-display fingerprint sensors these days. As you've probably already guessed, the phone's $350 price tag dictates that it's not going to have a top-tier processor on the inside, and not even the mid-range Snapdragon 765G for that matter. Google used the next best thing though, the Snapdragon 730G paired with 6GB of RAM. Now, if you're into mobile gaming and want to play games like Fortnite or PUBG, this is definitely not the phone for you. The Pixel 4a can play them, but you have to tweak the graphics settings quite a bit in order to get a good, smooth gaming experience. Most other casual games are definitely playable, and I even tested out Stadia for a couple hours without a single issue. When it comes to multitasking, 6GB of RAM is commendable for a device in this category. It's not going to get the same performance as what you get with the OnePlus Nord with 8 or 12GB of RAM, but it's just enough to make sure that you're not constantly dumping apps from memory as soon as you open up a new one. While Google's never had a reputation of putting together a smartphone with best-in-class specifications and performance, it has a great reputation when it comes to its software, and the Pixel 4a is no exception. All of the software features that Google packed into last year's Pixel 4 have been carried over to the 4a as well. This includes Google's amazing voice recorder app with live transcription, call screening, which honestly is a whole lot of fun when you know that you have a spam call coming in, and live caption, which has been updated to work with pretty much any app on the phone as well, including voice and video calls. If you're not familiar with Google's take on Android, it's very minimalistic when compared to what other manufacturers have been doing. If you love what Samsung and Huawei have done with Android as of late, the Pixel experience can feel quite boring. But if you're not looking for all the bells and whistles, I'd say that this can definitely be a breath of fresh air. Google still has the same customization options that they introduced on their software last year, but if you feel a little bit constrained and want a little bit more breathing room, there's always third-party launchers that you can download from the Play Store. When the Pixel 4a was announced a couple weeks back with just a 3,140 milliamp hour battery, I thought we were looking at a repeat of the Pixel 4's notoriously bad battery life. To my surprise though, that wasn't the case. There's no denying that the tiny battery inside of here is a lot smaller, 25 to 50% smaller than what you see in competing devices. But somehow the Pixel 4a manages to get through a full day and then some on a single charge. Throughout my testing, I've been able to go 12 to 14 hours on a single charge with 6 hours of screen on time and still have about 15% battery life at the end of the day. Now, when it comes to charging, 18-watt charging in my book shouldn't be labeled as fast charging, but since the battery inside of here is so small, it's able to go from 0 to 50% in about 20 minutes, and if you want to go from 0 to 100, it'll take you just about an hour. In 2020, we've seen a handful of mid-range smartphones that claim they can compete head-to-head with some flagship tier devices in terms of camera performance. One of the only devices, though, to live up to those claims is the OnePlus Nord, offering a quad camera setup with an incredibly versatile camera experience. But if all you want is to be able to capture the perfect shot every single time, no matter what the lighting conditions are, the Pixel 4a is definitely the undisputed winner in this category. Now, the phone only has a single 12.2 megapixel camera on the back, which honestly isn't that much when looking at other devices, but it is the same sensor that Google used on the Pixel 4. But the real magic is in the software with the incredible computational photography that Google's been refining for years now, allowing the off-the-shelf sensor to deliver absolutely stunning images. It honestly doesn't matter how the scene is lit. The Pixel 4a will outperform the OnePlus Nord and a handful of flagship tier devices as well when capturing still images. It blows my mind that this phone here only costs $350 and could still go head to head with the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus when taking pictures. And the same goes for taking selfies and portrait shots. Even though you only get a single sensor on the back or the front of the phone, Google's software outlines the subject perfectly, separating the foreground from the background much better than what you see on devices that even have dedicated depth or time of flight sensors. And the final piece of the puzzle here is Google's night sight mode, which allows you to capture images in near darkness every single time. If you love taking pictures at night or in low light situations, the Pixel 4a will astound you every single time. And the cherry on top is the Astrophotography setting, which kicks in automatically when you keep the phone steady enough while pointed at the sky. The images that you get of the stars are absolutely stunning, and it's something that you typically can't pull off unless you have a really expensive DSLR with a tripod. But of course, the downside here is that you still only get a single camera on the back of the phone. Now, I'm not going to be missing a telephoto or a macro camera, but if you've had a phone with an ultra-wide camera, that's definitely going to be missed here. If you're upgrading from a mid-range device from a year or two ago, it shouldn't be an issue, but just keep that in mind if you're looking at upgrading to the Pixel 4a. Google's also really never been that good with video capture from its smartphones. For the main camera, you can record 4K video at 30 frames per second, and the sensor is also paired with optical image stabilization, so the video that you do record should be fairly stable. But the overall quality of the video isn't the best. And for the front-facing camera, you only get 1080p video at 30 FPS, which honestly pales in comparison to the 4K 60 FPS video that you can get on the OnePlus Nord. As exciting as flagship smartphones are these days, with their incredible displays and amazing spec sheets, mid-range devices like the OnePlus Nord and the Pixel 4a have somehow managed to steal away just a little bit of mind share in 2020. Now, the OnePlus Nord is overall a better smartphone when compared to the Pixel 4a, but it's also more expensive. If all you want is a no-frills device that can take better pictures than your friend's $1,000 iPhone, the Pixel 4a will definitely do the trick. You simply can't find a better smartphone camera within the category, and the phone's $350 price point makes it one of the most appealing smartphones to buy in 2020. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching my Pixel 4a smartphone review. If you enjoyed it and you made it this far, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up button as well. I'd greatly appreciate it. I have more smartphone reviews and camera comparisons coming up, so make sure to stay tuned for those. Thanks again, and I'll catch you on the next one.